This past weekend, as you all know, was Thanksgiving weekend. And since I wasn't able to make it home to my family in Ontario, graciously, one of the families here at the parish invited me to spend Thanksgiving with them. And while I was there, one of them said, well, why don't we play some Settlers of Catan? And I thought, sure, this will be a nice, relaxing way to spend my vacation. And those of you who are maybe chuckling to yourself have played Settlers of Catan before. If you haven't, it's a strategy game where a big part of it is how you can be cunning in trading resources with other players so that you can build and expand your kingdom before they can. So we start playing Catan, and suddenly, this sweet, innocent family began to turn on each other like jackals. Saw a completely different side to them. Husband against wife, brother against sister, and I'm afraid to say, parishioner against priest. Everyone was doing their best to claw their way to the top, to push everyone down, to be the winner. And before you think that I was an innocent victim in all of this, I wasn't. I was just as ruthless, just as cutthroat as anyone else. In fact, one of the family members said to me, Father Isaac, if you ever want to preach on kindness at the parish, we know that we don't have to listen to anything you say because we've seen how you play Catan. Now, of course, this was just a game. We were all friends, mostly, by the end of it. But isn't it true that we experience this kind of competition for real in our day-to-day life? That rat race to get ahead at work, trying to get the promotion, trying to impress the boss and move up in the world. Maybe, just maybe, this kind of ambition is present even here at this parish. You know, Father Simon's been here a long time. A long time. Maybe with Father Dan and myself here, like, we're kind of deaking it out for who's going to replace him, you know? And now with Father Graham here, there's three of us. Like, it's anybody's game at this point. Like, it's a real battle royale. That presider's seat that he sits in, that kind of head chair in the church, that throne, it's not the Iron Throne. But it's something, right? It's something. You see us kind of in Mass, this chaotic, you know, who's going to sit on which chair. We're all trying to get to the main chair, you know? And with three of us as associate pastors now, we could stage a coup if we really wanted to. You know, Father Dan got here before me, so technically he's like the associate to the pastor. Or sorry, the associate to the pastor. Father Simon keeps clarifying that with us, you know, the associate to the pastor. And if I'm the next runner-up, I'm like the associate to the associate. Who's keeping track at this point? All I know is that when Father Graham came here, yes, I got the smaller office than Father Dan, because Father Dan was here first. But at least I got an office, because Father Graham got a cubicle. Now, obviously, I'm joking. There's no coup. I promise, Father Simon, no coup. Right. But these kinds of power struggles, they really do exist in our world. Maybe not even at work, but even in your marriage, in your relationships. You're trying to be the boss, trying to wear the pants, as it were. Who gets to call the shots? And all of this maneuvering for control, it can lead to some really negative consequences. Personally, you can feel like you've always got to keep striving. The pressure is always on. You've got to keep at the top. The world tells you that unless you're at the top, you're a failure. So that's what's going on in your own heart. And then in your relationships, what can happen is you can't let your guard down ever. You start to see people only as rivals in the way rather than having a truly joyful relationship. And again, this can be particularly toxic in a marriage. But is this the way that the church is supposed to function? That constant competition and ambition to get to being the greatest? Well, certainly, James and John, two of Jesus' disciples, they thought that this was the case. If you don't remember who James and John are, they're brothers. They're the same guys that wanted to burn down a city that rejected Jesus. So Jesus gave them a nickname, Sons of Thunder. So you can kind of get an inkling into the personality of both of these guys. And these brothers are making a power play. They know that Jesus is going to be the king that was prophesied, that his kingdom is going to come into effect, and they don't want to just be in the kingdom, they want to be on the top of it. So they come to Jesus with a request. They say, "We want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." That doesn't sound like an ask to me. That sounds like a demand. Right? We want you to do this for us. They're already acting like they're the king, not Jesus. And it really shows the patience of Jesus in dealing with these knuckleheads, that he doesn't tear a strip off them right then and there for being rude, but he actually asks them, "What do you want me to do for you?" And they say, "Grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory." They want to be co-rulers with Jesus in the kingdom. They want to be at the top of the ladder. And maybe they thought that they had to get a leg up on the other 10 apostles. You know, they know that Jesus has told Simon Peter, "You are going to be the rock that I'm going to build my church on." Maybe they're thinking, Simon Peter's going to be over us? We got to do something about this. Or maybe they know Jude, who's a cousin of Jesus, is one of the apostles. Maybe they think, Jesus will keep the high-ranking positions within the family. We got to make our move now. And when the others hear about this, they become angry. Like, no duh, of course they're going to get angry. But it shows that all of them have that same ambition in their hearts. And this group of men, called by Jesus to be his closest followers, suddenly they're at each other's throats, divided by jealousy and envy. Each one of them wants to be the greatest. And so Jesus just pauses everything and takes the opportunity to teach them a lesson. And this is what Jesus says. "You know that among the Gentiles, those who they recognize as their rulers lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them." He says, the Gentiles, the world, the nations, this is how they view power. You get to stomp on everyone who's underneath you, and you're always trying to make it to the top. And that's the way even our world nowadays thinks about it. But Jesus says, it is not so among you. It's not so among you. Whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant. Must be your servant. For Jesus, the greatest members in his kingdom are the ones that serve. He completely flips the way the world looks on leadership. Servants come first. How can this be? Well, ultimately, the reason that Jesus values servants so much in his kingdom is because it's tied to the mission that Jesus himself has as our servant king. Jesus says about himself, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. And here we see the completely radical nature of Jesus' teaching that flips everything on its head. Jesus is king. Make no mistake about that. Jesus is king. He's the ruler of heaven and earth, the immortal God from all of eternity, sitting on the throne of heaven, worshipped by billions upon billions of angels. This is Jesus. And yet, his purpose in coming to earth, it's to serve. It's to give his life for us. The contrast is so fascinating, and it's so countercultural. In Jesus' kingdom, he is not interested in people who are trying to climb the ladder of success. He has no time for ambitious scheming or jealous striving. Jesus is looking for people who will follow him in serving, as that is the way to true greatness in his kingdom. And this is his call to you, to every single one of you. Jesus is calling you to imitate him in serving others. And that's why we're doing this preaching series called Serve like Jesus. Because serving is such an important part in the life of any disciple. And all of us, every single one of you, is called to be a disciple. A disciple, very simply put, is someone who's following Jesus. To put more flesh on it, it's someone who's fallen in love with Jesus, who's made Jesus the center of their life, who is converted to Jesus, converted to his church, converted to his cause. This is what it means to be a disciple. And here at the parish, we want to make disciples. That's the whole reason we exist, to help people keep taking that next step in their walk with Jesus. To make that easier, we have something called our game plan. Maybe you've seen this before, because we believe that every single parishioner should be plugged into this game plan, going deeper in their discipleship, taking next steps in following Jesus. And if you look at that purple heart, serve others is a part of our game plan. We believe that it is essential for those who want to be disciples to be serving others, following in Jesus' footsteps. And Jesus celebrated servants in his kingdom. And so in imitation of that, we want to celebrate the servants here in our parish. If you are serving here in the parish, I want you to know that you are a leader here. You are a leader in this parish if you serve. You're a servant leader following Jesus. But maybe some of you haven't had the opportunity to serve here in the parish. Maybe you just haven't had the chance. You didn't know about the game plan. You haven't taken that next step yet. Or maybe you have been serving in the parish before, but you've fallen out of it, and even now as I'm preaching, you're feeling that tug on your heart, the Holy Spirit calling you to serve again. Well, I want to invite you today to follow Jesus and serve others. This parish can be a place where you don't have to strive to be the best. You don't have to claw your way into the boss position. You can serve Jesus with a freedom and a joy from the worldly pressures and the ambitions and the jealousies that's out there in the world. You can come to this parish and serve in freedom and joy because that's what Jesus did. And watch as the joy of serving with Jesus replaces the rivalries that formerly existed in your relationships. We want to make it super easy for you to serve here at the parish. Not to just fill in a gap or serve out of a sense of duty, but to really plug into our game plan, grow in your discipleship, and put your gifts at the service of God's kingdom. And to make it super easy, there's two things that we've done. The first thing that we've done is on our website, there's a page called Serve Like Jesus. You can visit it. It's designed to make it easy to serve because you can see all of the many options, the many ministries that we have going on here, and you can see, what is God calling me into? And then the second thing we're going to do to make it easy to serve is after Mass, there's going to be people in the foyer wearing purple badges that say, "Ask me about serving." And they want you to, you guessed it, ask them about serving. They would love to chat with you about how you can get plugged into serving here. They want to walk you through it every step of the way to make it easy. Whether you've never served before, whether you've served in the past but you want to get back into it, or even if you're serving already and you're wanting to try something new, we want to help you get plugged into the place where you can use your gifts best to serve God's church. And I'm asking you to serve because I think that you have the potential to do it. I really do. I think that you are all called to be leaders here at the parish, to serve others like Jesus did. And so what I want to do with you right now, actually, is share with you the story of someone who decided to follow the Lord. Her name is Jacinda. I'm going to invite her up. And she took that next step in her discipleship to follow Jesus. And I just want to talk with her so that you can see the effect that this has had on her life.
Oh dear.
So, Jacinda, what was your relationship like with Jesus before you kind of got involved here in serving at the parish?
Well, I started coming to St. Benedict in 2021, and that was the beginning of my faith journey. So I was just learning about God and Jesus when I started coming here.
Started coming here, so you didn't have much faith background coming in. Okay.
Nope.
And how did you get involved with serving? Like, what did that look like?
Well, I found a bookmark in one of the pews that had a long list of different ministries that I could get involved in. And as it turns out, I was not qualified. I didn't feel qualified for any of them, but I did think that I could pull some weeds, so I joined the gardening ministry. Yeah, and after work, a couple of times a week, I would come and pull the weeds from the garden and talk to God and try and figure this all out.
And so from gardening, how did you get involved with other ministries here at the parish?
So that kind of evolved naturally. Brad, when he was a lead, so he would often ask me, I need a collector. Can you help me with that? Or I need a greeter. Can you be on the door?
Yeah.
And so I did. And then it just evolved into, yeah, this feels good to be there
Feels right.
on the regular.
And since you've started serving more at the parish, getting involved with hospitality, marriage ministry, all the other things you do here, you do a lot. What has your relationship with Jesus started to look like now? How has that impacted your relationship with the Lord?
So maybe a year ago, I had this aha moment, and Brad and I were talking about it. It was my awareness that, hey, wait a minute, I'm not volunteering anymore. This isn't something I feel I should do. This is actually who I am. And the joy that I get from smiling and greeting and opening doors for the parishioners, it lifts me up. And my relationship has changed. I feel like I'm on his team. I feel like I'm on Jesus' team.
That's awesome. I feel like I'm on Jesus' team. That's awesome.
And I go,
I don't need to say anything else, right? She feels like she's on Jesus' team now, and she is, right? You are. And Jacinda is a servant leader in this church, in the kingdom of God. And that same joy, that same purpose that she has, I want that for all of you. Like, I want you to take that next step in discipleship and say, I want to be on Jesus' team too. I want to serve in his kingdom, because that is how we truly become great.